Number 2 in the ACC, number 17 in the nation. Those numbers sound good to me.
Yeah, there's a lot to like in this recruiting class for darn sure. There are some misses as well. So, talk about all of that, I guess. But overall, having a top 20 class, especially coming off of a 6-6 season, is a very great accomplishment. But there's still things to be desired.
So, Cam, when you bring those things up, we'll get to those. But in regards to the late commits that were brought into the fold versus the guys that got away, divide those two categories for us.
Well, there were no late ads. There were no late commits. And that's kind of part and parcel of where the problems begin, or are continuing, I should say. Excuse me as I move my chair. Miami has not closed well in years. And that's part of the problem. And that is, kind of going in with losing games. At the end there, Romello Height was disingenuous about the fact that he took a secret visit to Auburn. He overtly said that he did not, but I get it. It was kind of like when Steve Kerr was asked about switching the lineup before the finals game years ago. Basically said, I could have told you the truth and given away our strategy, or lied and kept it a secret, which is proprietary to us and the focus of what we're doing. Same thing for Romello Height. Like, people asked overtly, you were in Auburn last weekend, right? The weekend before National Signing Day. And he said, no, I was at home, which was not true. But you miss on him. Manny Diaz said that was not a miss, because whenever a guy takes a visit who's committed, then he considers Manny Diaz, that is, considers Miami to also be looking at new options. I'm sorry, Manny, that's not how it works. Romello Height was committed to Miami since July the 1st. Him going to Auburn at the 11th hour or 23rd and a half hour of a 24-hour day in this metaphor, that's losing a commit. Sorry. I mean, you can spin it however you want to, but that's losing a commitment. Sorry. You miss on Justin Flo, which, again, I expected after losing those games. I said it on, I and a friend of mine, Fred Perdue, we have not every day anymore, but, a Canes podcast, Locked on Canes, and I said it today. I don't understand why for the last 15 years, Miami has been the most pump-faked, misdirected team whenever there's like a hat on the table ceremony kind of thing. Everybody knew Justin Flo wasn't coming here. You had Clemson and USC hats on the table too. You could have pump faked one of them. You could have reached for one of those hats, but no, you reached for the Miami hat, paused, and then reached for the Oregon hat. Why does it have to be Miami every time? You know what I mean? Like, come on. And I mean, if you're hurt that we didn't get Justin Flo, I understand it. But if you really thought that we were getting Justin Flo, then I don't know what to tell you. The joke I made on Twitter is that I have oceanfront property in West Kendall. P.S. By the way, that's nowhere near the ocean for those people who are not from South Florida, to sell you guys. But yeah, I mean, any chance that you had went out the window when you lost those 2 games. Period. Darnell Washington has not announced yet, but he put up a couple emojis. He said he was not going to sign now, but he put a couple emojis up on Twitter today of one was a paper and one was a pencil. So maybe he signed with his chosen school. Spoiler alert, that school wasn't Miami. If it was, then I'm not going to get on here like some of these Florida fans and say that I'm going to eat feces or things like that. But I will admit that I was wrong if he ends up signing here. I just don't think that is going to be the case. But you have Jaden Francois, instead of coming to Miami for the 3rd time, he commits to Nebraska in a kind of, maybe a 5.5 on the crazy scale, because he's going in and out of his announcement ceremony before it starts. He's on the phone, he's teary-eyed, his parents are going back there behind the gym. They went through one of the doors. I was getting DMs and texts from people who were on site at South Dade for this. So they saw with their own eyes. They're like, no, they're texting me. He got up, he went out there because the news came out right before the announcement ceremony that the coach who had been recruiting Jaden Francois to Nebraska is leaving to go to Ole Miss. And Nebraska's coaches are begging him to still go through with his commitment, still come out there and everything, blah, blah. And he was wearing a Nebraska shirt underneath his jacket. So that was the plan all along, in case people were thinking that, he was going to come to Miami all along and he switched to Nebraska. No. His whole family was wearing Nebraska gear underneath their clothing. That was the plan. But it was a crazy hour. He was in and out, and he's visibly upset, and he's sitting there like a petulant child, just pouting at the table, and got up again, and they removed his name placard from the table and told everybody he's not committing. And then all of a sudden he comes back and they put the placard back and he's sitting there. It was a time for Jaden Francois for about 70 minutes before he actually committed. Keyshawn Green also committed to Nebraska. Marcus Fleming, who Miami dropped / he decommitted, or whatever you want to say, he goes to Nebraska as well. But I think that they're taking his brother as well because they wanted to do a package deal kind of a thing. To answer the last two questions, yes. Again, Romello Height did take a secret visit to Auburn the weekend before National Signing Day as to why Justin Flo didn't come here. Miami started losing, and you lose any kind of cachet that you have with a recruit like that. And Mario Cristobal and that staff out there at Oregon's doing the damn thing. So, you have one staff and team that is floundering and another one that has closed like gangbusters for the third year in a row out there at Oregon. If it, once is an accident, twice is a trend, three times is evidence. In the case of Mario Cristobal, all 3 years, National Signing Day, early signing day, they close. Always be recruiting, always be closing. I mean, you look at Kayvon Thibodeau last year, number one player. You look this year, you got 2 5-star linebackers and 2 4-star linebackers in the same class. What? At Oregon? Huh? Yup. I mean, they're doing numbers out there. So, but that's the short story long to say, when evaluating the late ads versus the late misses, it is an undefined equation because there were 0 late ads and all of the late misses. And that is a factor in how I and others perceive this class, despite the fact that 18 of 19 commitments signed, you lose one, or 18 of 20, you lose one to Auburn. You have one who reportedly has academic issues, so he needs to sign in February. So 18 of your 19 currently committed guys signed yesterday is really, really, really great. But misses matter, and there are still holes on this roster in this recruiting class.